Tazdingo! Yes!
I like trolls. Trolls in the Warcraft universe, that is. Their propensity for berserking in battle, alongside their incredible regenerative powers, have allowed for various high points in the story of Warcraft. However, through no fault of their own, circumstances arose that would see them laid low, forcing them to occupy a fraction of their former glory. Even so, trolls are a diverse and widespread race, still ranking among the most powerful mortal races on Azeroth. The following is the humble start of troll kind. Origin: the Well of Eternity. The Well of Eternity was an incredibly powerful location. Azeroth's own lifeblood flowed from this site. The power was further enhanced and reinforced by the Titans. This planetary power accelerated the growth and evolution of life. This is where trollkind originated. Trolls are among the first sentient life native to the planet. They started as a society of hunter-gatherers occupying the planet's jungles and forests. Initially, trolls stuck together in smaller tribes, each following a highly respected leader called a shadow hunter. Some tribes were warlike, destructive, and even cannibalistic. Others pursued magics in the forms of meditation, shamanism, and the darker voodoo. One thing that they all had in common was that they all revered and worshipped deities known as the Loa. Loa are powerful beings that are mostly the wild gods. That said, other beings can be worshipped as, and even transformed into, Loa. The wild gods themselves are incredibly powerful beings of natural might. Previously, the Titan Keeper Freya had wandered the planet, finding places where Azeroth's lifeblood had coalesced. These places were optimal for spawning life, and they were Ungoro Crater, Sholazar Basin, and the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. These sites were where colossal animals spawned, titled the Wild Gods. The Wild Gods followed Freya as their mother. Together they would often visit a peak called Mount Hyjal. It was here that Freya bound the Wild Gods to her other creation, a surreal natural realm connected to Azeroth's sleeping world soul called the Emerald Dream. Hyjal was a sacred place for the Wild Gods, and they would symbolize Azeroth's health and vitality. Wild Gods had come to frequent a mountain range in southern Kalimdor. Troll tribes gathered in these mountains to pay respects for their deities. They would name the range Zandalar. Smaller tribes made their homes along the slopes of the mountains, while the most powerful tribe, the Zandalari, claimed the tallest peaks for their cities. Here, upon their sacred ground, they created shrines and temple cities. The capital city of the Zandalari trolls was named Zuldazar. The smaller tribes did not allow the Zandalari to occupy the sacred peaks of the mountains without contest. For the next several centuries, tribes would challenge the Zandalari for their hierarchical position and power. The strongest of these challengers were the Gurubashi, the Amani, and the Drakari tribes. These tribes would gain strength, spread apart, and grow, claiming large portions of the continent's hunting grounds. The tribes would clash on occasion, but large-scale conflicts were few and very brief when they would occur. The trolls knew that with their skill and ferocity in combat, neither side would exit a conflict without heavy losses. Various tribes would eventually decide to spread further from the Zandalar Mountains. It was wiser for them to claim untouched hunting grounds rather than risk war competing over the same land. Almost all the land was theirs to claim. However, there was one site that the trolls were not allowed to disturb as it was forbidden by the Loa. A site at the base of the Zandalar Mountains held a mound of blackened stone. Tempting as it may have been, no troll in their right mind would disobey the wishes of their deities and disturb the site. Zando. Zando was a Gurubashi witch doctor with a grudge. His rivals had overtaken his position in his tribe, and as a result he became an outcast. He dreamt of revenge against his rivals, and he came across a certain dagger. This dagger had a sentience of its own and was named Xal'atath. Even after the Titan Forge defeated the Black Empire, Xal'atath remained passing from mortal hand to mortal hand until now, arriving in the possession of Zando. Xal'atath latched onto Zando's ambition and anger, using it to manipulate him. Zando led his outcast followers to the forbidden site at the base of the Zandalar Mountains, ignoring the warnings of the Loa and the Shaman. He simply knew this was a site of great power. The witch doctor found that this black mound wasn't stone, but in reality was the hide of a powerful creature, perhaps even an unknown Loa. Under Xal'atath's direction, Zando butchered his followers as sacrifices to the creature. He offered the creature blood, limbs, and organs to see it awakened. Finally, Zando drove the bloody dagger into the creature's hide, and it rumbled to life. Zando and his followers were never seen again. Xal'atath had awakened Kithix, a mighty Cathraxi servant of the old gods. It had fallen into slumber after battling the Titan Keeper Tyr, but now was awake and armed with the blade of the Black Empire. Kithix looked upon the trolls and their civilization with disgust and contempt. They were nothing compared to the Black Empire that once stood in these lands. The Cathraxis swore to obliterate the trolls. But Kithix needed time to grow his power. He rallied the old god forces, namely the aqir. These insectoids had survived the ordering of Azeroth by hiding underground. Together, they created an underground empire by the name of Azjakir. These hidden forces of the aqir grew in number and strength until the Cathraxi deemed the time was right. The Troll-Aqir War. With this army and the dagger of the Black Empire, Kithix waged war on the trolls, his army swarming the lands. Using Xal'atath's powers, he weakened the trolls' bodies with pestilence and weakened their minds with visions of death. The trolls were formidable hunters and combatants, but the surprise attack led to the decimation of many small tribes. The Dark Army drove the surviving tribes toward the Zandalar Mountains. They prepared to lay siege in an attempt to wipe the trolls from the planet. The Empire of Zul. The Zandalari acted promptly in retaliation, working to unite the disparate troll tribes under one force, the Empire of Zul. This army, under the command of the Zandalari, was one of the greatest forces the planet had ever seen. The Zandalari employed various tactics to secure victories. They ambushed the aqir weak points from the jungles. They had priests contact and summon the strength of their powerful Loa. The wild gods took up arms alongside the trolls, destroying the aqir and wounding Kithix. This forced a retreat from the aqir forces. They would need to regroup before they tried to siege Zandalar once again. The trolls knew they could not allow the Cathraxi and the aqir to regain their strength, so they had to mount a perilous pursuit. Every tribe knew how dangerous this pursuit would be, but a few tribes answered the call. The Gurubashi, the Drakari, and the Amani gave chase. The Drakari pursued the aqir north, pushing into the frozen lands. Not only did they face the aqir, but another foe that none were prepared for. Tol'vir, Obsidian Destroyers. This Titanforge race had been corrupted by the influence of Yogg-Saron, an imprisoned old god. It was only a small group of Tol'vir, but they nearly overpowered the Drakari. However, over time, these cunning trolls devised ways to defeat the corrupted Titanforged. The Gurubashi had pursued the aqir to the south and had come across a similar problem. On Karaj, the prison of the old god Cthulhu had been overrun by aqir, and the Titanforge Anubisath inside had been corrupted. The first engagements between the Gurubashi and the Anubisath-empowered aqir were disastrous. The Gurubashi suffered heavy losses. The Zandalari devised a new strategy and gave it to the Gurubashi. They were to divide their force up into smaller mobile parties that could pick off aqir forces quickly before retreating. After all, as it stood, the trolls didn't need to eliminate the aqir, they simply needed to keep the aqir's numbers from growing too large. Meanwhile, the Amani trolls had the most ambitious task of pursuing and killing Kithix. They followed the Cathraxi into the northeastern forest, cutting through aqir guardians. The Amani knew Kithix had to die at all costs, and mounted a suicidal assault on the Cathraxi. The toll was heavy. Only a fraction of the Amani forces survived, but they had succeeded. The Amani had finished what the Titan Keeper Tyr had started. Kithix was dead. The aqir had lost their general, and the Amani solidified their fearsome reputation in troll history. This event also allowed for the Gurubashi to win their engagement to the southwest, since the aqir lost direction and ferocity without Kithix. With that, the Empire of Zul was victorious. The trolls had won the war and no longer needed to remain united. Tribes grew distant and insular, eventually creating their own empires. Even so, all trollkind knew of the Amani ferocity, and all trollkind were indebted to the Zandalari for their leadership and strategy during the Troll-Aqir War. The Dark Trolls. Outside of all these battles and war existed another tribe. The Dark Trolls were quite different from the other troll tribes. This group lived in cavernous networks beneath Mount Hyjal and abhorred daylight. Without sunlight, the nocturnal troll's skin faded from blue to gray. They were unconcerned with battles for land, power, and glory. Rather, they took pride in being something different from the common troll. Dark Trolls strove for a deep, peaceful connection with the planet, leading many to migrate back to the Well of Eternity, where trollkind had started. Over time, the energy from the well altered the Dark Trolls, morphing them into a new form possessing grace, intelligence, and near immortality. The ex-trolls abandoned their past heritage and beliefs to worship Elune, the moon goddess. They believed she was connected to the Well of Eternity. They took to calling themselves Kaldorai, Children of the Stars, or Night Elves. But this is a video about trolls, so we can stop here. Notes and trivia. The surviving aqir fled into various regions where they took on new characteristics and names. In the north were the Nerubians, in the southwest were the Karaji, and in the far south grew the Mantid. Some powerful named wild gods are Malorn the White Stag, Aecina the Mother Wisp, Agamagan the Razor Boar, Aviana the Mistress of Birds, Ursoc and Ursol the Colossal Bear Lords, Tortola the Wise, Goldrin the Great Wolf, Chuji the Red Crane, Niutzao the Black Ox, Chuen the White Tiger, and Yulon the Jade Serpent. Outro. Hopefully the story convinced some people to enjoy the trolls a little bit more. A lot of the information in this video comes from World of Warcraft Chronicle Volume 1. I appreciate you watching and spending some time with the story. Have a good one.